A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. You're listening to Now This Is Lit, a podcast about Star Wars books, the people who make them, and the readers who can't get enough of them. I'm your host, Meg Dowell. I use she, her pronouns, and today a very special guest joins me to talk about the Essential Legends collection. What is it? Why is it so important? And what's coming next? You know, why are Legends books being republished with new covers, and even though they're the same book, why does that matter? That's what we're going to talk about today. I was very excited to invite a longtime friend onto my show to talk about Legends because he is more of an expert in Legends than I am. We used to do a show together. We don't anymore, and that's all I will say about that, but this is a great conversation, and I'm so glad that I can finally share it with you. So here is that. I hope you enjoy. So, you're here, and I would like you to tell me why you're here, why you're doing the Star Wars, what you're doing. What are you doing here? Hello.
Wow, that's full-on interrogation. I feel like I'm Han Solo strapped to that comfy chair in Cloud City. You know, the one where he screams and he says, "They didn't ask me any questions." Meg, I'm very happy to be with you. It is a pleasure. Meg and I used to do my other podcast, Legends Lookback, together for quite a while there. And we are finally catching up and getting back in the podcast seat together to talk about some Legends. Very excited to do so. I'm one of the people that Meg turns to with her Legends questions. And I have so much to say about tonight's topic. It is lovely to be with you, Meg.
It is so good to podcast with you again. Like, you know, we've been talking for a little while before we started recording. And as soon as we started, like, we're back in it. It's like we never stopped. It's
really
a beautiful
does feel
feeling.
It really does.
Isn't that weird?
I just told you the story of the turtle that caused my massive mountain bike crash a couple weeks ago. And if anybody sees a turtle out there that looks like he's messed the guy up, you know, like a turtle with a badge of honor on his shoulder, like collecting kills, like scratching into his shell all the mountain bikers he's taken down, you just get in touch with Meg and she'll get in touch with me and we'll find that turtle, because it absolutely derailed my weekend last week.
If anyone is worried, Jared is mostly fine.
Yeah, that's right.
He'll be fine.
I was able to climb the stairs to get up here to the podcast studio in order to talk about some Legends. Very happy to do so.
Legends. Jared is one of my favorite Star Wars Legends experts on the internet. He knows way more about Legends than I ever will. No matter how hard I try, I cannot read as fast as him. I do not have as many Legends books as he does. And I didn't read as many Legends books when before they were Legends, but here we are. So what I'd like to ask my guests that come onto the show to talk to me for some reason is how you got into Star Wars books, because everyone has a little bit of a different story about like why they are now obsessed with these books. So like, where did it start for you? Because I don't know if I've ever asked you that question before.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to find out from people. It is astounding, isn't it?
Yeah.
How people come at this universe in so many different ways. You know, I know people who have like, I went into a Barnes & Noble and I picked a book up off the shelf and I didn't know they had Star Wars books. Mine did not happen that way. It happened in the local library. I grew up in a small town called Chickasha, Oklahoma, 15,000 people, but we had an awesome library. So shout out to all of our local libraries out there, all of the librarians putting in the hard work, especially those librarians who are stocking their shelves with Star Wars books. Woo. Because it changed my life. Our local librarian, her daughter was like a year older than me, and she was big into Star Wars. And so because of her, she just blank check bought any and all Star Wars books for our small town library. And you know, I stumbled upon the section that had, you know, that series. People I think have forgotten about this series, like Zorba the Hutt's Revenge. What is that series called? Is that Galaxy of Fear, or is that Jedi Prince? We're
Oh,
really in the weeds. We're only like 2 minutes into
because
this.
I read Galaxy of Fear, but I don't remember it well enough to remember if that's which one that was.
Might be Jedi Prince. They're non-canonical even in Legends, so that should tell you something,
Oh
right?
no.
Yeah.
Oh no.
So I found like these weird Star Wars books, but they've got astounding cover art by Dave Dorman. No. The other one, Drew Struzan. Drew Struzan's cover art on these is so fantastic. And so I found these and I was reading them. And I was like, these are weird. My librarian was like, oh, you like Star Wars books? Let me take you back here. And showed me, whoa, the shelves. They were just wall to wall, floor to ceiling. And, like the A.C. Crispin Han Solo trilogy, all the Young Jedi Knights books. This is where I got started. All the X-Wing books. This was my intro to Star Wars, really. Read a lot of the New Jedi Order as it was coming out. Didn't really know much of what was going on. At like 10 years old, what I really latched onto were the Young Jedi Knights, and then the Jedi Apprentice, Jedi Quest, Jude Watson books. You ever read those?
No, I have not read any of the books that you just mentioned.
You could read them all tomorrow. They're like 100 pages each. They're super breezy. They've held up well. They really have, especially the Jude Watson universe, these young reader books. And so just goes to show like how important it is to have Star Wars books that are for every age group, every audience. So like it hit me right as that 10, 11, 12-year-old range. It was like back and forth from Young Jedi Knights to Captain Underpants, right? And that's how I got into it. Besides that, I read like the Bane books in high school, any of the books that looked edgy with Sith Lords on the cover. Revan, all those. Then I fell out of it, just kind of dropped off. My wife and I were on our honeymoon, and as a couple of book nerds, we went to a bookstore. Going to the beach, you're gonna have plenty of time to read. And I found these 2 collectible volumes of the Young Jedi Knights books. I had forgot they existed. And so it was 10 years ago this year, actually just hit at our 10th anniversary, which is also my reacquaintance with Star Wars books anniversary. It was then that I restarted reading the Star Wars books. I'm currently up to date on canon and have read, I'm coming up on my 300th Star Wars book total, not counting rereads, not counting comics. So it's been a fun journey. You might say that I've gone in too deep on the topic. I wouldn't say that, but some might say that it's become obsessive, but it's been fun.
I mean, we wouldn't be here right now if reading Star Wars books was not as fun as it is.
That's right. Absolutely.
I didn't realize until I started talking to more people about this, how many people's Star Wars book stories involve some kind of like walking away from it for a while and then coming back, because like that's what happened to me. But I thought like, oh, like I just like gave up and then came back. It's like, I think it's just part of like the journey of you're young, you find these books that you love, and you kind of like think you've grown out of it because you're like, oh, I'm not cool. For me, it was like, I'm too cool for Star Wars.
Yeah.
So
when we were in high school, the Clone Wars movie came out.
Yeah.
And that was just so clearly not what we wanted as high schoolers. We didn't know that the series would get as good as it got, but I was like, this isn't for me anymore.
Yeah.
It's fine. But all right, I'm workshopping an idea, Meg, now that you say that.
Okay.
Like a Joseph Campbell hero's journey of everybody's Star Wars reading journey. Like there's these essential beats that you have to hit. And one of them, like crossing the threshold, is you've got to at some point walk away.
Oh, I want to like turn this into an episode now.
It could be a thing. We'll workshop it after the show.
Oh, we have to now because I can't stop thinking about it. No, it's really like everyone has like, even if someone doesn't remember like what their first specific Star Wars book was, it's always like, oh, I remember I found it through this, or someone introduced me to it, or
Shout out to my mom who would drop me off at the library because it was around the corner from her office and she needed to get me out of her hair for the day. The 90s.
Oh, the 90s. Shout out to libraries and the 90s and not being able to go on the internet and just like look up, like, because I mean, that's what when I came back to Star Wars books, first thing I did was like try to find a list of Star Wars books because I was like, I don't know what books there are. I don't know what order they go in. It was a whole thing. But you couldn't do that in 1998 8 or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember my librarian photocopied, the timeline that was in the old Legends books?
Yeah.
She photocopied me one of those.
No.
And then I wore that single sheet of paper, like I wore it out. I would write on it, scratch it off. Like it was all wrinkled like an ancient treasure map by the time that, I ended up realizing that it was actually in the books and I didn't have to just hang on to this one sheet of paper.
Oh, did you keep it though?
No, it's gone.
No.
Yeah.
How cool would that be if you kept it? Oh,
I would frame it. That's right.
yeah.
As if I have any space on my walls for more Star Wars frames.
See, like that's the problem I have, but with like bookshelves. Like there's no more. I think I've officially run out of space. I had to because there's 3 shelf sections back there. I only had 2 and I had to get another one. It's still not enough.
That's why I've stopped actively collecting. It's just there's no space at the moment. I'd have to totally restructure this office that I just finished building a few months ago in order to squeeze another Star Wars book in. But there's enough where we had friends over last night and I was like, all right, listen, this is gonna be a lot for y'all to take in before we even walked upstairs. I'm warning you, there's a lot.
Oh, I mean, we have Star Wars stuff just everywhere because it's just who we are. And it's I don't know, man. If you like it, if you got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I've got a whole Thrawn shelf. I mean, just Thrawn.
Really?
Yeah. There's
there is a lot of Thrawn, to be fair.
There's all I got action figures. I got one of these itty bitties from Hallmark. One of those. I call him cute Thrawn. You got a statue. I've got a bust of Thrawn.
Oh, you have the bust.
I do. I've got the bust. I've got all the books, the alternate covers, including I've even got the Essential Legends collection copy of Heir to the Empire on the shelf.
Wow. Essential Legends collection. What's that?
Yeah, let's tell the good folks, Meg. I see the way I teed that one up for you. It's like in college when one of us would give a presentation and we'd ask one of our buddies, hey, when we get to the question and answer portion, why don't you ask me this question? Hand them a slip of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how that one felt. Yeah, so the Essential Legends collection is this initiative from Del Rey that is re-releasing Legends classics. So some of the staples of the expanded universe in waves of 3 to 4 books at a time. What, 2 or 3 times a year?
Yeah, it's kind of like seasonal. Yeah.
There's waves. That's right. That way you can budget it because otherwise it would get out of hand. And it basically makes Legends books more accessible to people. Instead of having 200 books to choose from, hey, here's a dozen. Oh, of course, it's growing rapidly. This initiative, it's got this big banner right across the top, Essential Legends Collection. These are the ones worth starting with. You don't really have to have read anything else in order to start with these. They're in a larger form. What are these called, Meg? The bigger floppy ones?
Something. Are they just? I mean, they're not. What kind of paperbacks are they?
There's trade paperbacks and there's mass market paperbacks.
Yeah, I think trade paperbacks are the bigger ones.
These are the trade paperbacks. Yeah. Meg says it. That's true.
If I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
I call them the floppy ones.
They are very floppy.
They are the most readable format of any Star Wars book ever printed.
Yeah.
The most readable. They feel so good in the hands.
They do.
They'll lay open for the most part by themselves, not always. You got to break them in a little bit.
Yeah.
And they have new cover art. What am I missing? The audiobooks?
Yeah, some of them come with audiobooks because a lot of Legends books only have, if they have audiobooks, they're a lot of times abridged audiobooks. So now with some of them, they've released full unabridged audiobooks, which is my favorite because I'm mostly consuming books through audiobook at this point because I have a lot to do.
The dogs don't walk themselves. That's all I gotta say.
Exactly.
The dishes don't wash themselves either. Yeah. So you gotta listen to those audiobooks. And so at this point, when the initiative is done, every single one of these will have an unabridged audiobook. So the ones that didn't are getting new treatments. It really rounds out the whole program. It's fantastic. Yeah. And it's one of the things I love the most about it. They're bringing in some great vocal talent. Sam Witwer recorded the audiobook for Darth Maul Shadowhunter.
It's so good. It's so, like, I was listening to it and I'm like, I don't have time to re-listen to this when it's over, but I really want to, because there's just something about listening to Sam Witwer do Maul.
It's I have yet to, like, scientifically test this, but it might be the best Star Wars audiobook ever made.
It's very, very good.
There's some sentences where he will float back and forth between his Maul impression and his Palpatine impression in the same sentence. So it'll be like Maul ruminating on what his master would think if he messed up. And he's like, my master would think this is terrible. That was awful. That was more of like a the lizard man voice there. Anyway, he can go back and forth between the two voices in the same sentence. If you have not listened to this, that is what I would spend that first Audible credit on for sure. So it's a really cool initiative. It's accessible to new fans, fun for old ones, because we can get new copies for our shelves.
Yay. Yeah, it's like, because when they first announced this, or when they first released them and we're like, oh, they're not hardcovers, but like hardcovers are great for displaying and like collecting and like having them on the shelf. But like, there's just something about these, like it's the art, it's the way the covers are arranged, but it's just like the feel of them too. There's just something, they're very soft and like comforting, and it makes you want to like,
they are. Who needs a security blanket?
Yeah,
when you've got
it really books? They're delightful. And I don't know, like I have them all lined up on my shelf and they just look really cool.
Definitely. Now, I don't want to be too picky about this. There have been, before we get the angry emails, there have been some quality control issues.
Oh no.
With these. Not all of the little golden banners on the spines line up exactly in the same place across all the books.
Yeah, I noticed that.
And then some of the covers get like a millimeter from reaching the edge of the book. So they cut off a little short, kind of like those tank tops, the trendy ones that the Gen Zers are wearing, crop tops. It's kind of like a crop top for Star Wars books, a belly shirt. And so some of the quality control has been a little off. However, if you get them on your shelves just right and you get enough of them, you won't notice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like they're probably a little bit cheaper to make, but like the fact that they're re-releasing these and making this into a whole thing, because like one of a major problem that a lot of people who want to read Star Wars books have is that it's just so overwhelming. Like canon is overwhelming enough, even if like you start with that and you're like, oh, I don't know what to read first, but like you get into Legends, or you tell someone, oh, read this Legends book, like you don't, like if you don't know where to start or like what the most important ones are, you're lost. And like that stops a lot of people from trying, because you could pick up any random Star Wars book, but like if it happens to be part of a series, or like you don't know who these characters are,
right,
and you try to read it and you're like, oh, that was an okay book, but like I didn't really vibe with it because I didn't read what maybe should have come before it. It's like it just
half of these, there's a ton of baggage.
Yeah,
I mean, New Jedi Order and on, there's like a whole list of 12 to 22 books that you'd need to read before trying to attempt the 19 book series, that then is followed by a trilogy, followed by a 9 book series, followed by another 9 book series. I mean, there's so much baggage. And so I appreciate Essential Legends Collection. Hey, let's make it easy. Start with these. However, at this point, the initiative is getting so big that there could come a point where it's not quite that simple. So we'll see.
Yeah, and like they decided to like do them, they started them in like a certain order. So like they did the Thrawn books kind of like they released a couple at a time. So the original ones, and they did those, and then like they did the Bane ones, and like they're trying to do like, oh, we'll release, because they release 3 or 4 at a time, and some of them are part of a series and some of them aren't. So they're trying to like maybe like make it so like, oh, you can follow along, but like at least on the covers that are part of a series, it says like book 1. Because like
Legends didn't
do that. It's like,
did they not? All right. I'm going to the shelves, Meg.
I mean, maybe they did, but like, I don't think it was as obvious from what I remember.
Going to the shelves.
The shelves are an important reference point.
Okay, some of them do. Like Dark Force Rising says Volume 2 of the Thrawn, but it's very fine print. And I think that's probably one of the only ones that does.
Yeah. Yeah. So like
the X-Wing books don't, and there's 10 of them.
Oh, and like, what are they going to do? Because like they're doing in the 4, they're called Rogue Squadron now. I mean, like it makes sense, but they're not like X-Wing anymore. But then there's books after though. I don't know.
Yeah, specifically what you're addressing there is the X-Wing series. It's 10 books, but they have story arcs. And so the first 4 are the Rogue Squadron books. Then the next 3 are the Wraith Squadron books. After that, it gets a little messier, a little bit back and forth, one-off adventures. And so what they've done in the Essential Legends collection is they've rebranded them to make it easier, clearer. And that is what they've released is the Rogue Squadron series. So what do we have? Rogue Squadron, Wedge's Gamble, Krytos Trap, followed by soon to be released the Back to War. That will comprise the Rogue Squadron series, originally known as the X-Wing series. So I just appreciate that it makes it a little bit clearer for new readers.
Yeah. And those books, the Rogue Squadron books that have come out so far, I hadn't read those. I think I might have read one of them for a podcast. But those have been released with audiobooks so far. And so like those were, for the most part, that's the first time I was consuming them ever. And I love them and they're great, but like, I just like, I never got around to them. And so like, that's what we mean when we talk about like making this more accessible, because like me mostly listening to audiobooks, being able to finally consume these books that I've wanted to read. So good. I mean, had you like, I guess so far, because there's a bunch that have been released so far and there's more coming. And like, I will, in our newsletter, I'll put all this in writing because it's a lot. I'll list out all the books and things like that. So you can see them, get them, read them if you want to. But how many of them had you, like, were there any that have come out so far that you hadn't read yet? Or had you read all of them?
What if I told you my answer isn't all that simple?
What?
Okay. So
tell me more.
Here's the books that are out. I had read them all, kind of.
Okay.
The books that are out so far are Kenobi, Shatterpoint, the Thrawn trilogy, which is Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. You've got the Bane trilogy, Path of Destruction, Rule of Two, Dynasty of Evil. As we mentioned, the Rogue Squadron books, there's 4 of them. Then we've got Darth Plagueis, Shadowhunter, and Death Troopers with more. What is it? 100,000 more on the way? What's the quote from Attack of the Clones?
Million? Is it 1 million? 1,000? I don't. Why do I not remember?
I know Legends books, not the movies. So anyway, those are the ones that are out so far. Out of all of those, yes, I had read them all, kind of. I had listened to the abridged audiobook of Darth Maul Shadowhunter like 5 times. It was not one of the more egregiously abridged books. It was still a 6+ hour audiobook, which is pretty good compared to the originals that had to fit on a cassette tape, which were 3 hours long. You butcher a 10-hour, it should have been a 10-hour audiobook into 3. And you're losing a lot, which was the original X-Wing books. So I had listened to that abridged audiobook of Shadowhunter a bunch of times and loved it. Oh, it's just so good. So this was my first read through in its entirety of Shadowhunter. And there really wasn't a whole lot that I was missing from the abridged version, but it was worth it because it got Sam Witwer's rendition, which was fantastic. So yeah, I had read them all before. Shatterpoint might have been the same way, where I'd listened to the abridged version. And then Sullivan Jones. Shout out to Sullivan Jones, was his first Star Wars audiobook performance for Shatterpoint. So he did a great job. Absolutely great job. Yeah. So, but yeah, besides that, I had read them all. I've listened to all the audiobooks as they've been re-released. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed having the X-Wing books on audio. That's what's especially cool about that. I'm at the very end of the Krytos Trap right now. I think I've got less than an hour left in the book, which is killing me. There's like some prequel music mixed in.
Oh.
which is like for some of the battles. At one point, the Trade Federation music kicks in when they're going into a, da 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 da. That mixed with the X-Wing books is so awesome because that music didn't exist when those books were first written.
Oh, that's
so it's
right.
such a weird kind of time capsule that we're experiencing right now.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just especially love the audiobooks because I listened to a few when I was trying to get into Legends more. It wasn't a couple years ago now, it was a while ago. Because what is time? But I listened to a couple of the abridged audiobooks and I was like, this is fine, but I feel like I'm missing something. I mean, in some cases, let's be honest, you're not missing a ton. But like I kind of was just like, I listened to a couple and I was like, I will just read them because like I just knowing that I'm even if it doesn't matter, like even if they do a really good job of cutting it down, I didn't want to feel like I was missing something. So I kind of gave up.
The completionist in you, Meg.
I'm fine.
For some of them, it actually does them a favor.
Yeah.
So like the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy, for example, had no business being a trilogy.
Oh no.
Oh man, that story is dragged out across 3 books.
No.
But if it was one, it would have been pretty good. Story-wise, the writing is questionable. So if you condense all 3 of those into the length of what should have been one book, it's still mediocre, but okay,
right.
But for the most part, these, they're definitely the heavy hitters. I mean, we absolutely needed an audiobook for Shadowhunter, for example. It's one of the most underrated Star Wars books ever written. It's flown under the radar. So many people have yet to discover that book. Yeah. Because let's be honest, the original cover looked like a classic 2000 Legends book, right? It was just Darth Maul's face on the cover. Boom. Well, let's give it a little bit more than that. Now we've got Darth Maul's entire body on the cover.
This is probably my favorite cover of this collection so far. It's hard to pick, but like as soon as I saw it, I was like, this might be the one for me. And I love like because that's one thing, because it could have just re-released the books in a new format or whatever, like same book, but paperback or whatever. But they did all the new cover art too, and like it's one of my favorite things about them because they're beautiful. There hasn't been one yet that I really didn't like, because like for some Legends books, the cover art originally just wasn't super great. I'm not a fan of the original Darth Bane cover art.
Yeah, the Rule of 2 in particular is, we joked that it looks like it was designed in a PlayStation 1.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was rough. That one was rushed to the print, so it was a rush job, and the cover artist didn't get done in time, so they had somebody else do a quick and dirty. And so that's one. Ruins of Dantooine is one that it's an actual.
That one is.
It's an actual shot from the video game, and it's just a couple of stormtroopers in an AT-AT or an ATST, the chicken walker, something like that. Anyway, it's rough. For the longest time, I judged that book by its cover.
Oh no!
I read it this year. It's okay. It's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Yeah, glowing review. It's pregnant pause. Okay. So it's awesome that they're getting new cover art. I mean, that's awesome of Del Rey, especially to commission new artists.
Yeah.
To have a go at these. And it's great for the fandom. It's rewarding to Legends fans.
Yeah. And it's like, even because whenever they announce these new waves, they have like a little picture with the books all lined up to tell you like which ones are coming next. And even those look so great. Just like, it's just, you took these stories that, I don't know how exactly they decide which books are essential. Tom says there is a criteria, but he has not talked about it, which is fine. That's Tom from Del Rey. I talk about him as if we're friends. I don't know.
It's like Jake from State Farm. You have to say it like that. Tom from Del Rey. That's right. Lovely person. Absolutely delightful.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm quoting him as if I'm quoting scripture here, right? So I could be wrong. I seem to remember him saying one of the reasons is qualitative, one of them, but that's not the only reason.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I like about this is there are some kind of under the radar books, like, as I said, Maw Shadowhunter, one of the kind of overlooked hidden gems of Legends that now is, being brought out into the spotlight, which is very cool. Very cool. There's always like, a couple books, maybe one in each wave that you kind of wouldn't have expected to be part of the collection, which is very fun. We can talk about some of those. You mentioned your favorite cover art. You said Maw Shadowhunter.
Mm-hmm.
I currently have all of my Essential Legends collection books sprawled out on the floor right underneath my feet for quick reference, so that I can talk about this on the podcast. Let's see here.
It's very cool to me that we have enough of these now that they can be sprawled out in front of you. There's not just a couple, there's a whole. I love it.
Oh, I got them out of order too. I'm gonna have to like find which ones go in which order now after the show. It's been very fun. Okay, the Heir to the Empire cover, it's not my favorite, but I've got to say it looks like Thrawn is a reptile. His skin is very scaly.
Interesting.
And it's like just kind of the design choice they made for the textured skin, but yeah, it looks like he's about to shed that skin right all over the Chimera. Okay, so that one's fun. I love the cumulative effect of all of them lined up together. The X-Wing books, each one on their own is not my favorite of any of the waves, but the first one is like a red starfighter helmet with X-Wings flying. Wedge's Gamble then has a pilot, and there's like a TIE fighter in the goggles. Like they're looking at a TIE fighter, which is very cool, and it's got the big blue Rebel insignia next to it. Third book, Krytos Trap, green. So like a bold color choices. This one, it might be my favorite because we've got Yasan Isard front and center on the cover, and she's got her two different colored eyes. I had to look at them. I'm colorblind. I don't know. What are they? Purple and now I'm dug myself into a hole because I'm colorblind. Anyway, she's got two different colored eyes, and it's very cool on the cover. Very striking. Very fun that she, for the first time ever, is featured on the cover of a Star Wars book. Maybe. So cool. I guess she's on one of the Jedi Academy books. Oh. For the second time ever, featured on the cover of a Star Wars book. So that's my pick. There we go. Roundabout way to get there. The Krytos Trap. That's my pick.
Oh. Yeah, I just love those books. And like a lot of these, like I was thinking of Shatterpoint, were on my like list of like I'll get to them eventually, but like not a priority because like in my mind I was like, oh, these books are probably really great, but there's just so much else to read. I'll get to them eventually. But like because Shatterpoint was one of the first ones to come out and one of the first of these new audiobooks. And so I started reading it and I was like, I had been sleeping on this book, and you wouldn't think that just based on like when the book takes place. And, it's a Mace Windu centric story. And I'm like, that's cool. But like, I don't know. But like, I read it and I'm like, this is why they're doing this initiative, because like, you never know what you're going to find. And you could just pick random Legends books and get to them. But like, they're just handing them to you. They're like, here, we have decided. We, the literal Star Wars book experts, because it's our job, have decided that these are very good books that you should read.
Yeah. I got to be honest with you. I didn't hear every word you just said because I realized I misspoke.
Oh, no.
Dala is on the cover of one of the Jedi Academy books.
Oh.
Not Isard. And I got them confused, and I wasn't going to be able to sleep tonight if I didn't correct that. I was going to lose all my Legends cred. Somebody out there is screaming in their car at the top of their lungs right now at me, or they're out walking their dog and they're just screaming. And the dog is like, what's wrong with you? And they're like, this Legends guy thinks he knows what he's talking about. And then but yeah, back to your point. I do appreciate that there are some hidden gems that they are putting back in our hands and saying, don't sleep on this one. One of the fun ones coming out soon that fits that category is Yoda Dark Rendezvous. This is slated for the next wave of releases, if I am remembering correctly. What is this, wave 5, I think, coming out soon in November? It could be after that. Anyway, it's been announced. It's happening. Yoda Dark Rendezvous. It is absolutely one of those kind of like hidden gem Legends books that I recommend to people all the time. You've got like a Yoda and Dooku going at each other
Ooh.
kind of story. Dooku's trying to make a deal during the Clone Wars to end the Clone Wars, like make a truce or a ceasefire, or.
Huh.
But Yoda's like, I don't know, trust him, should we? You're right. So he goes to Dooku's spooky castle.
Oh dear.
Yeah, like he risks his own little green neck. And goes and like meets Dooku. And is it a trap? I'm not gonna say. You got to read it. It's a great book. There's a Padawan in there named Scout. Her real name is, see if I can do this, Elizabeth Inderwung Esterhazy.
Wow.
I just am pulling that out of my hat. I don't know for a fact if I got that right, but I hope I did. She's a great Legends character. And if that name doesn't ring a bell, if Elizabeth Inderwung Esterhazy doesn't ring a bell, well, then you got to do yourself a favor and read Yoda Dark Rendezvous, because it absolutely should. Fantastic character.
I need to also, I'm going to, after this, after we
make
record,
that your ringtone.
I have to send you what the Zoom transcription.
The Zoom transcription. I just lost Meg. She's gone. I don't see her anymore.
It had a very hard time with that name. That's all I'll say.
Elizabeth Inderwung Esterhazy. That's right. Yeah. Who knows what that is hilarious. Oh my gosh.
Oh. Star Wars names are hard, even for robots.
Yeah. Beep boop. Yeah.
Oh.
Way to go. Sorry, robot. That's my fault. Actually, it's who wrote that? Sean Williams?
Maybe.
Yeah, I can't see it from here.
I'm so bad at. If you wrote a Star Wars, you're great. And also shout out to anyone who is listening to the show while walking their dog, because like if you're that dedicated to listening to my show, I really appreciate you. You're great.
Yeah, shout out to all the dog walkers, all the cat walkers too. Do people walk their cats?
I mean, maybe. I've seen cats on leashes before.
That's
I don't know.
Something else. Wow. Yeah, we're gonna go ahead and say it. Shout out to all the cat walkers too.
And then any other pets that you may walk.
We're not about to start listing them all off. Not about to happen. Well, we mentioned that Yoda Dark Rendezvous is coming out in the next wave. What else has been announced that we haven't mentioned so far? The Old Republic books. Have we talked about those?
Oh yeah, those are coming out. They have not yet. Okay. For some reason you said that and I was like, Bane came to my brain. I mean, it's not the same, but it's way far back in way before prequels times. Yeah. So like eventually all of the Old Republic books. So Revan, the order is very confusing. Like if you try to look this up,
standalones, and yet they're also part of a series.
Yeah.
You don't have to have read any of the other ones in the series in order to read the one that you want to read.
Right.
They're all video game tie-in novels to SWTOR. And the two that have been announced that are part of the Essential Legends collection that are coming out are the Old Republic Deceived and the Old Republic Revan. Now, Meg.
Yes.
Up until this, I think they've done a fantastic job choosing Legends books that are really good for first-time readers. I'm not sure that if I was calling the shots, I would have included the Old Republic books.
I have my theory on that.
Okay.
Is that
I think they're going to make money. That's what I think.
Well, yes. But like, I think there is something to, because this is kind of a guideline that I use when I'm recommending books also for people who are trying to read for the first time or trying to read different things, is like, a lot of people at least like know what the Old Republic was, or they've heard of it, or they've seen someone playing the game, or they've played the game, or they like know, oh, Revan is an important character, even though you know, say what you want about the books, whatever.
Yeah,
but,
it could go either way.
Yeah, but I think like there is value in putting them in this collection, knowing that like a lot of people at least probably have heard of it before. And so like maybe that's a little less intimidating. You're just like, oh, okay, Revan. I've heard that name before. Let's read this book and check it out. I mean, like, I would also play the games if you want to, because I think they're pretty great. I still have not finished the first one. I tried. I tried. I never did. I was getting there.
It's a bear.
Oh,
it really is.
Yeah.
So I think that the book, I think they'll do well. I think that Deceived is
Mhm.
okay. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that Revan is okay. You've got to go in feeling like, manage your expectations. Revan is not entirely about Revan.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
spend a lot of time with a Sith Lord who doesn't really want to be a Sith Lord. And and if you go in and say like, all right, I'm reading a Star Wars book, surprise me, give me something good, then it can be good. But I do think that the covers look great, and I think that a lot of people will read these, which is cool. I don't know if they would have made my list, but I'm not in charge. I just get to talk about this stuff on podcasts.
Well, that's a really good question. Like, not counting. Okay, we have like a whole list of what's been released and what's been announced so far. Like, if you were deciding what the next unannounced wave of Essential Legends collection books were, do you know what you would pick? I mean, like, that's a big question for just asking you off the top of your head.
Yeah, I'm interested in your picks too. At the beginning of the show, I had none. I was like, no, I think they've pretty much done it. My list has already grown to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I've got 8 picks, so you can't squeeze those all into one wave. So I'll give a few. 1, the AC Crispin Han Solo trilogy.
So good.
So I would put the Paradise Snare in my wave. Go ahead and like get the trilogy kicked off with the glitter stem and the telepathic ululating rhinos, the ones that they jiggle. They have vibrations that are addicting to people, and they form a religious cult around the feelings they give people when they vibrate. It's a great series. You're gonna love it, everybody.
It really is good.
So that's what I would do. I put Paradise Snare in the wave. I might do the Courtship of Princess Leia. I'm not gonna act like it's the most thought-provoking Star Wars book ever written, but it is entertaining. It's pulpy, and it is foundational for Legends. There's a lot established in that book that becomes relevant much later in the timeline. It's relevant, I think, for canon readers. You've got the Rancors on Dathomir, Night Sisters. I mean, all of that will be familiar to canon fans. If you've seen Clone Wars, I mean, all that's gonna ring a bell, and you're gonna say, "Oh, wow, I can't believe that was from this book where Han kidnaps Leia in an attempt to woo her." So, but it's fun. It's good, and I don't know if it's great, but it's it definitely could be included in the Essential Legends collection. And then my third pick for the wave might be Outbound Flight. So the Timothy Zahn Thrawn novel set. What is it before? So it's after episode 1. It's before episode 2.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, so you get the original Sabayoth, who then comes up later in the Thrawn trilogy. You've got Anakin and Obi-Wan doing some Jedi stuff. You got Thrawn. Introduction of Aralani, I think, is in that book.
I think so, yeah.
So it's I think even referenced, at least in passing, in one of the newer Thrawn books. So that'd be a good wave. I think those could all make it very easily. How many do I get to include in my wave?
I mean,
that's
you can
probably
keep
enough.
going if you want.
That's probably enough. Lost Tribe of the Sith by John Jackson Miller. It was a collection of short stories, but the way they all kind of counterpoint each other and then form this broader narrative about this ancient tribe of abandoned Sith trying to form a society out on this lone world. And you've got some very, very fun short stories, the way they all come together. It does tie into the Fate of the Jedi series much later on the timeline, but it's not essential that you read that in order to appreciate the book. So there you go. That's my wave. There you go. You got some Han, you got some Sith, some Thrawn. Well-rounded, don't you think?
I love it.
What am I missing, Meg? What would you include?
Oh man. Okay. So what are the book? What are they called? I don't know. I have to go look. It's the 2-book series about, it's like one, Leia has one and Han has one. It takes place like between is it in between?
Glad this came up, Meg. I get to tease you.
What?
Yeah. So they're in the This is the Empire and Rebellion duology.
Yes, that.
These were released right before the Legends canon split. The very tail end of Legends. Del Rey was saying, like, we want to focus on some original trilogy era books. We want to focus on our core characters. Let's get back to basics here. Honor Among Thieves is fantastic.
It's so good.
What's the Leia book called? Razor's Edge. It's very good too.
Yes.
There was a third book originally intended. There's a third book originally intended to be part of this trilogy, and then the Legends canon split, karate chopped it into canon.
No.
And that book
I
did not make the cut to be in Legends. That book is heir to the Jedi, Meg's all-time favorite Star Wars book. Featuring Luke using the Force on noodles. That's how Luke learned to move things with the Force, was on his bowl of noodles.
All right. I need to explain. I need to briefly explain this because, all right, so I read Heir to the Jedi, and I initially had feelings about it. Not all of those feelings were positive. So I went on my
That's
Instagram.
one way to say it.
I went on my Instagram and I wrote this review, and I didn't delete it. It's still there if you scroll back far enough. I was not nice. And by not nice, I was probably harsher than I've ever been since in a Star Wars book review. And I will never write a review like that again. But I was not happy.
Well,
I did not enjoy
never
it.
A Star Wars book like that ever written again.
Well, but okay.
In its defense, it was an experiment. It's written in first person.
Yeah, it was a different kind of Star Wars book. I was not prepared. But you know what? I have this philosophy that, like, sometimes if you try something like a Star Wars book and you don't love it, let it sit for a while, have your feelings, go back and try it again. I have not done that yet. I have not gone back to it, but I feel like if I did, and when I do, I will have a much more positive outlook. And as I'm talking about this, it is not a bad book. I'm not saying, like, don't read it. Sometimes when you're also reading a book and you're just not in a great place in your life as you're reading it, like, it affects the way you read stuff. So, like, I think just a combination of different things made me give it like a terrible score.
I have had that happen to me with books. Queen's Shadow, I hated my first read through. Just hated it. My second read through, I loved it.
Yeah.
I have never been so hot and cold on a book before. I mean, I wrote, I think my Goodreads review of Queen's Shadow, my first time. In fact, I had an angry commenter who rebuked me for what a bad rating I gave it. I gave it one sentence, which was, well, that was severely disappointing.
No.
And then I changed my mind on it. I actually really love it. And so it can happen. It can happen. I will not be rereading Heir to the Jedi, but you're welcome to, Meg. You're welcome to. Anyway, it is not a part of that series. Those would both be great inclusions in the series. They're accessible Han and Leia stories. Absolutely fantastic Legends books.
So good. I'm trying to think of more. Because, like, a lot of my favorites, like Kenobi, they've already done. The Thrawn books they've already done. Which makes it, I mean, you couldn't do a collection like this and not include the original Thrawn books. Like, I read them. They were not my first Thrawn. I wouldn't say they're my favorite Star Wars books ever, but, like, I understand the foundational value of them. Like,
they're some of my favorite Star Wars books ever. Yeah. I reread them almost every year.
Well, it's the fact that, like, before these books, Star Wars books really weren't what we know them as now. Like, there were some Star Wars books, there were Star Wars comics, but, like, until that Thrawn trilogy, it just wasn't, like, Timothy Zahn just, like, he did a thing. Right. It's very important.
Yeah, he reignited the universe. Yeah. #1 New York Times bestseller. It beat out, I just looked this up the other day for an article I was writing. It beat, my cat just bit me. I'm in her chair.
No. How dare you?
Yeah. Hey, Meg says, how dare you? Let's see here. No, you were talking to me, weren't you? You were talking to me. Okay. It beat out Stephen King's The Stand.
What? I did not know that.
On the New York Times bestseller list. That's
right. That is wild.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So those obviously are in. I don't know if you count the original, the prequel novelizations. Revenge of the Sith could definitely qualify. It's iffy on if it is Legends or
Mm.
not.
I feel like they almost need to do something separate with that, because like I talked
Yeah.
about this in my canon versus Legends episode. Film novelizations are like, especially like the prequel ones or the ones that are not the sequel trilogy, they're not canon, but they're also not Legends, so it's hard to like, because it like they're canon until they contradict something that happens in a movie. Or like you take Revenge of the Sith, for example, like it's not the movie, but it's also not Legends because it's based on a movie that it is canon. So it's very confusing.
References a lot of Legends books.
But it sure does. I haven't reread it in a while. I need to.
Yeah, I'm having this debate with people almost every week. Okay, here's a couple more. Speaking of Revenge of the Sith, they relate very closely to it. The other two books in the Dark Lord trilogy, the unofficial trilogy, wasn't written as a trilogy, but it's since been marketed as one.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like, it makes sense.
Wacky.
It works.
Those books are both by James Luceno. Labyrinth of Evil is the immediate prequel to episode 3, and then Dark Lord of the... Oh, no, this one's got a long title, doesn't it? Oh, Star Wars, what have you done to me? It's called Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader.
Oh, goodness.
Both of those... both of those would be great inclusions. Slap Darth Vader on a cover, people are going to buy it.
Those are good books.
They're great books.
I really enjoyed those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't read more books that are like set in the prequel trilogy that are Legends, because like that was like my favorite era, like around that time, is like around like the Clone Wars. I don't know, I just missed a lot of it somehow.
Well, maybe that's like Meg. The Republic Commando series is being released as part of this initiative. So we've got the first of them by Karen Travis, Hard Contact. Republic Commando Hard Contact has been announced that it's going to be one of the next waves. So we can all celebrate our love for Murd, the hermaphroditic, six-legged bird dog.
Those books were the first time we ever podcasted together.
It was so awkward.
It was
so awkward.
I would love to go back and listen to those now, but I don't think I could.
Don't do it, Meg.
Because
Meg. Somebody stop Meg.
Fun fact, it's like I had podcasted before that, but not like a ton. Like I'd done mostly like guest stuff. So just like I didn't really know how to podcast.
I said, hey, I need you to read some books for this podcast. Oh, hey, by the way, I need you to read 4 of them in like 2 weeks. Okay, bye. I remember
it was New Year's Eve. I was just sitting on my couch reading books for the podcast, because we were recording like 2 days after that. Oh, that was a time.
Yeah, we've learned a lot since then, but those are going to be great to include in this series. Karen Travis gotten a lot of flack for a lot of stuff, some of it having to do with the way she wrote those books. I'm not going to weigh in on all that right now. I think as they are, for what they are, you might love them. I happen to be in the camp that loves them. A lot of people don't. And if you don't, I don't care. They're great books, and I'm very excited for more people to discover them.
Yeah. If you really like Mandalorian lore and like that type of stuff, like there's a lot of that in there that like, even if the story and the writing is not like your favorite, like I think that stuff is really interesting too.
Sorry, my puppy just destroyed something downstairs. I'm like, wow,
no.
Who knows what that was? Yeah, definitely timely with the Mandalorian lore for sure.
We don't know, like, because there's no like timeline on this collection. So like we don't know how long it's going to go. We don't know how far in they're going to go with all these. But I am really, really looking forward to just all of it. And just like the fact that like we now have an excuse to like talk about these books more, because it's no longer like, oh, I like this Legends book, can we just randomly talk about it one day? It's like, oh, these 3 Legends books are being re-released, we can talk about them again, and more people can get excited. Yeah,
that's right.
Yes, it's good for content planning, but also just good for the fandom in general.
It is. And I think Legends fans have been in a weird spot over the last 8 years since the Legends canon split. there was a contingency of fans who did not take the news well, that Legends was going to be, relegated to an alternate universe, and that Disney was going to go a new direction with the sequel films, which is honestly they only had a couple of options on how they were going to do those. One was, let's give our storytellers creative freedom instead of bound them to these books that were written 30 years ago and make them just make adaptations. And so I think on paper, it was the right move to make Legends its own universe. One of the things that was good about that is it made a closed canon. That's the wrong word to use now, because canon means the other thing. It closed the universe, a bookend. Yeah, it was like, what's done is done. What's written is written.
Yeah.
There's a bunch. Go enjoy them. They're not going anywhere. And because some fans' outcry to that was so ugly, give us more Legends. Go back to those books. Keep finishing that series, and have not necessarily treated the creators well. It has painted a lot of us in a bad light. Some of us just love these books, and that's all there is to it. Right. And you can enjoy canon alongside them. You don't have to read canon, not required. So I love that finally Legends fans are being thrown a bone by Del Rey. Because not all of us were the ones that made the billboard, right? So some of us just want to be acknowledged and loved, and throw us a bone here and there, give us some new covers and some audiobooks, and we're perfectly happy.
Exactly. And it's okay to love these books and want to celebrate these books. And it's now your books are being celebrated almost. It's you might read the Thrawn trilogy again with these new books and these new covers, and you're like, I remember. It takes you back to reading them for the first time, however many years ago it might have been for you, and it's really something special. It's this collection is meant for the fans who read Legends before they were Legends and want to re-experience that and want to recollect that and want that to continue to be part of their fandom and their reading. But it's also for, at the same time, people who maybe have not experienced them ever before. And bringing those two together is it does something very special for Star Wars readers in general, because everyone can finally come together and just, even if, because you're not going to love every Star Wars book you read, and not every Legends book is great. And we say that with love.
Looking at you, the Lando Calrissian trilogy.
Oh no, I haven't read that one yet.
I just read them.
Oh no,
they're rough.
No.
Now that I've finished the trilogy, I can look back and say, okay, there's actually some good things going here, but it was a slog to get through. The conclusion of the trilogy, I do think they're worth reading, because the payoff at the end is one of the most satisfying reading experiences I've ever had in my entire life.
I love
what happens to the villain in the end. It is so incredibly not what you would expect. It's just a fantastic twist ending. And so but they were rough. I'm at the very end of my Legends read through, and I've saved the books for last that I didn't want to read, which was not a great tactic.
Oh no,
because the ones I'm trying to read now, they're not top tier. They're not top tier. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
So you know tough.
What? It happens. Some of these books were written a while ago. Legends, I just like to think of Legends we'll put it this way. There wasn't always a lot of structure, and sometimes storytellers were just given, you might say, a little bit too much creative freedom. And you know what? That is not on the writers. It's not on anyone in particular. It's just how it happened. Yeah. And those books still exist. You can still buy them. You can still read them. And you know what? In the scope of, I don't know why I just made this gesture, because no one can see it but you. It's
a great gesture. Great gesture.
The larger scope of Star Wars books, they still matter, because they're part of the bigger whole. Which means that, without them, it wouldn't be the whole. So they still matter. And
evolution to get where we are now. Yeah.
So that's why on Instagram, on this podcast, on Twitter, when I say Star Wars books are good, we're talking about the whole collective, the fact that they exist. I'm just happy that they're still making them, because it could have, but they wouldn't have done this, but it very well could have happened maybe in some other alternate timeline that when the changeover happened, Star Wars books could have just stopped, and that would have been it. but like here we are, not only getting.
Don't say that, Meg. Ugh,
You know what? It just.
that could have
But
happened.
aren't you so grateful though that it didn't?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
we're so
Yeah.
lucky. We're so lucky to get like, and you think about it now. I don't know, like off the top of my head, how often like Legends books just came out. But like it feels like we are getting a new Star Wars book like monthly at this point, and like
It's
I
about
think
as
that's
much as a
beautiful.
person can keep
Yeah,
up with, really, honestly.
yeah. It's
It is about as much. It's hard to even have time for Legends. It's hard to squeeze them in.
exactly. There's
Yeah.
a lot, but like, that's why we celebrate it, because like even if not every Star Wars book is for you, even if you don't love it for whatever reason, like it's still part of the thing, and like we're here to I with these books, like criticism is valid, honesty is valid, but like never negativity toward a writer
Yeah.
or
That's right.
a creator. Just like you can be critical of the thing constructively, which I think
Sure.
many people need to learn that, but you and I, and we're very good at that. So
You can read a book and put it down.
Yep.
You don't have to go yell at anybody.
Yep.
You can just put it down. You can say, that happens to me all the time. All the time.
Yep. Mhm.
I'll read a book and I won't write a review. I just, didn't dig it. I see other people are digging it, and I just let them dig it. And I just wish that more people would be like me, Meg. That was a terrible way to say that. No. I said, I've said a thing a time or two that I shouldn't have said. Shout out to the Queen's Shadow, for
Oh no.
that review I left it, which I shouldn't have. Somebody quoted a Bible verse at me. A Bible verse. I'm a preacher. They quoted a Bible verse at me to rebuke me for my bad review.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I was like, the Bible. Ouch.
Ugh. Like, yeah, I think like after my Heir to the Jedi reaction, I kind of have learned also to be like, honestly, like these days, like I'm so happy to have Star Wars in my life that I'm not super critical all the time, like just because like Star Wars is my joy and that's just how it is. But like if I do come across something I don't love, I kind of just don't really say anything about it, and I kind of just let it go. And like there's just Star Wars is not real. I mean, it's great. We're here to celebrate it. It's faking in space. And like sometimes if you don't like it, you can just move on. Someone on Instagram today was like,
move along.
I don't like this book that I haven't read. And I was like, are you trying to start something with me?
We about to do it. I don't like this book that I haven't read. That is, I gotta go tell my wife that. That's hilarious.
I just can't. You know what?
I don't like this book that I haven't read.
It was. I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't exactly
book.
That, but it was basically that was the premise of it.
Sure.
People are something else.
That's right. There's good ones and bad ones and everything else in between.
Ugh.
Just like Legends. And I'm happy that a lot of people are going to be getting their hands on some of these. I'm glad that Del Rey is continuing this initiative. We'll see how long it continues. At this rate, we've got a really solid Essential Legends collection, a solid stable of books that I'm gonna have to pick up off my floor when this is over. And the audiobooks are really stacking up. Shout out to the audiobook narrators who are just knocking that out of the park. Sam Witwer and Sullivan Jones and Mark Thompson. I got to interview Mark Thompson at Star Wars Celebration.
That is fantastic.
A 3.5 minute interview.
Oh, gotta love it.
about the Grytos trap. Oh. And it was great. He's a delightful human. And so they're doing a great job. All the cover artists are doing a marvelous job on these as well. And so it's a great initiative all around. Sometimes I like to just walk into the local bookstore and pick them up and hold them, look at them a little bit, even though I already own them.
I love that. And I'm sure you will be talking about them on your show. So why don't you tell everyone where they can find you and all the Star Wars things that you are doing on the internet?
Yeah, for sure. Our podcast is called Legends Lookback. Meg's on quite a few of them. What's the right word to use there?
Few? It was more than a few, but like
quite a gaggle of them.
Sure.
And we are talking about Legends books every single Thursday night. And Legends Lookback, the show. we just covered the Krytos traps. So following along with the Essential Legends collection as they are released, we are going to cover Darth Maul Shadowhunter as our next roundtable here in a couple weeks. So very excited to get to just absolutely nerd out over one of my very favorite Star Wars books ever. If you want to talk to me more specifically, I'm on Twitter at Jared Q. Mays.
Love it. It has been so great podcasting with you again. And thank you so much for coming on and talking about books with me, because it is my favorite thing.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I've had a great time.
Thank you all so much for listening. I was so honored to have Jared on the show, and I will have to have him back again to talk more Legends, and maybe we can discuss some books that we've talked about on podcasts before. It was so great to start recording with him and just fall right back into things as they used to be. I hope that you enjoyed listening to us talk about these books, because they mean a lot to both of us, and I'm sure because they're Legends, maybe they mean a lot to you as well, and that's why I wanted to talk about them. So the next Essential Legends collection books come out on November 1st, which is coming up a lot faster than I realized, because I hadn't had them pre-ordered yet, because I do not get copies of these sent to me. I choose to buy them for my collection because they're just so great. So November 1st, that is 2 weeks from today. So if you have not pre-ordered your copies, do that. I'll put a link in the description and in the newsletter, which I will actually release this week, because you know what is hard is keeping up with newsletters, because they're so great, but they're a lot added on to, a lot more work. You know what? I love making this podcast, and that is not a complaint. We're just going to keep going as we are, because the show is so fun. I'm going to stop rambling. Thank you for listening, and see you next week. Now This Is Lit is part of the Faraway Fandom Network and is written, produced, hosted, and edited by me. Jose Jimenez designed our podcast art. If you would like to keep up with the show, you can follow Now This Is Lit at Star Wars Lit Pod on Twitter. If you'd like to support the show, subscribe to that newsletter that will continue to get updated, I promise. For more book reviews and just great pictures of books and book celebration all around, follow Star Wars Book Reviews on Instagram.